Hi again, this is Jack Downs, and I'm going to be giving you some markup basics. As we get more into HTML, you have to really learn some of these codes. And I'm going to jump into the APStyle exercise, which is one of your first ones due this week. I would expect and hope that you should have read Chapter 5 already thoroughly. You may want to have it open as you're working, because you're going to be working with some basic stuff for that. So I'm going to first jump into the exercise, and then I'm going to make some tangents while I'm in it, and then give you some instructions for finishing it. Here we go. In the exercise, and there's an APStyle document available to you to download. Here it is. It looks something like this. The APStyle, this document explains about reading the chapter first. Create a project folder. With that folder, create two folders: originals and APStyle last name. That's your last name. And we're going to download some stuff for these files and open some stuff in AP and Notepad++. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to make a new folder. Now, hopefully you're getting familiar with this idea, or I've reviewed it before, but it's really important to think about a project folder first. I'm calling this APStyle project, which is what I suggest to you. It doesn't much matter though, because I don't really see the project folder. It's really for your purposes. Within here, we're going to make it originals. And we're going to make the root folder, the all-important root folder. Remember, everything's always lowercase. Mine's APStyle Downs, because that's my last name. You put your last name on there. What goes in the originals folder? Here's where you're going to download from Moodle. And if we go to Moodle, you'll see in the resource files, I haven't put it there yet, but there's going to be two files to download there, one file to download from there called APStyle. So you'll download that. When you do, it's going to look something like. I'm in my originals folder right now. I'm going to paste a couple of things in there, one of which is what you'll be downloading. You get something called APStyle exercise, and sometimes when you download, especially if you download more than once, you'll get things like parentheses and numbers and so on. I wanted to show you that. If that happens and you're really using that file, that's a bad file name. There's special characters in there. Parentheses would not be allowed under our system, so you'd want to change that. But we're not going to really use that file. We're putting it in originals. Instead, what I want you to do is, you should have a blank. In fact, I suggest the instructions. You should by now have created a blank index file, or blank, called blank.html, blank something. I have a couple of them actually. I'm going to copy one. And I'm going to use that in my root folder instead. So here's my APStyle project and my APStyle root folder, and I'm going to paste it in here. And I'm going to change the name of it with a right-click, rename, to say APStyle Downs. But this is Downs.html. Remember, this is the actual document we're working on inside the folder of the same name. There's a folder. Whenever you ever get confused about where you are, look up to this sort of address bar, really. Now, you can't use this address bar when you're making links later on. You may think you would want to for relative links. I know we haven't gone over those yet, but we will soon. But this will show you where you are in the system. Okay, so what is this APStyle Downs.html now? Let's open up in Notepad++. And of course, it's a blank file. Now, I haven't had to type this basic HTML stuff. If you don't have a blank file, type this stuff up like you did before, and you can start at this point. Now, what's going to get pasted in here? Well, I've given you that stuff, so you don't have to type it all. And I've given it to you, and I put it in my originals folder. This file you just downloaded, I'm going to open that in Notepad++ too. This is just text now. It says it's an HTML document, and it is, but there's no actual HTML in it. It's just plain text. So I'm going to copy the name style rule view, and that goes in the title. And guess what? Name is going to be my name. And you put in your name. What goes in the body? All the rest of the stuff. Important stuff, so on and so forth, all this stuff. I'm going to grab it all. I'm going to paste it in the body. I'm going to save this page. close up the other one, and here we are. Okay, what does this look like so far? Well, we have a good title, and we have a whole bunch of paragraphs in here, but are they really paragraphs? No, of course they're not. Let's run it. It's one giant paragraph because we haven't added any structure. What kind of structure should we add? We're going to add paragraphs, headings, and lists. So let's add some structure here. I'm going to get started as you will. We're going to add an H1 and close an H1. And this is a good place to talk about the basic overall structure of HTML. Just a reminder, you've read about this in the book, but remember, HTML starts with tags. An opening and closing tag to make up an element usually. So we think about it like this. Element, and then close element, right? And what goes inside is the text that the structure has been applied to. This is a normal two-part tag. There are some that are one part. We can also have inside this first element, we could have some attributes. And when we have an attribute, we have an equal sign. When we have an equal sign, we always have a quotation mark. Now, this tag itself is illegal. There is no tag called element, and there is no attribute called attribute. But those are the general characteristics. So think about that overall structure. Sometimes we have what we call empty or replacement elements. And it's just a single element on its own with what you may have attributes. In fact, you may have multiple attributes on the same element. You have one attribute, another attribute, and so on. What would be examples of these? Well, we just did one. H1, H1. But there aren't really any attributes to apply here. Okay? Let's look at a tag that might have, well, first of all, let's mention something else. Of all the different types of elements, there's three big categories of elements. There's block and inline, and then this is where I differ from the textbook. I make another big chunk called grouping or sectioning. We'll get to those in a minute. So H1 is a block element. What does a block element mean? It means it appears on its own block. There's spaces that are added top and bottom. It separates out from the regular copy. It doesn't go with the flow of that block that it's in. It makes its own chunk. So H1 is a block. What does that mean? And here is no H2 is a block. All the headings are block elements. Let's make another one. When I get it, when it lights up in purple, I have confirmation that I made the front and the back properly there. This shows me how they're linking up. Guess what? Paragraph is a block. So it makes sense that we have an H1, a top-level heading. You will always have an H1 on every page. It makes sense that a subordinate heading is an H2. In fact, we should think about it as indented levels of a outline, and that this paragraph is a subset of that H2 also. So I'm tabbing that in, and that's the correct way. Now, tabs don't do anything to display; it just helps keep us organized, right? So we've got H1, H2, and paragraph. Let's say we, for some reason, thought we wanted something even smaller here. Would we just put H1 and H3? Never. Remember, we're not looking for size. We never want to skip levels of an outline. So we always have an H1. If we're going to have another heading, a subordinate heading to the H1, we always have an H2. If we're going to have a subordinate heading to the H2, it's always an H3. We never skip to a 4 or 5, and 6 is the lowest number. In your resume, when you're working on it, you'll certainly use H1, you'll certainly use H2s, you'll probably use H3s, H4s, maybe, H5 and 6, it's really rare to get down to that level of in the outline. So let's save this and run it. And this is what we mean by block. That H1 is a separate block. It's been separated out on its own. The H2 is a separate block. This paragraph is a separate block. It's been separated out from the rest of the text. So these are block elements. And let's continue then. Another kind of element is called an inline element. Inline elements, and your text also calls them text-level semantic elements. And remember, we're applying these elements because of the semantic meaning. And each one has real meaning. The meaning is it's a top-level heading. A paragraph has real meaning. The meaning is it's reading text that is subordinate to headings. So let's say we saw some words in here were really important, like large numbers. So we might say that those have a value of a strong. Remember, always lowercase. And it has to be a /strong. And that, again, inline elements usually also are two-part tags that they encompass some text. But this is text within a block element. And this is not going to break it into its own line. Inline elements are part of the line, part of the flow of the block where they appear, but yet it attaches semantic meaning to the text. Does it change styling? Yes, it does. Strong will make bolding, but what it means is important. B, which we think of as bold, actually means keyword. And it does also bold in most browsers. EM, what we think of as italics, or I, what we think of as italics, have special meanings. We don't use them for italics. In fact, we in presentation in CSS can make a strong appear any way that we want. We can make an EM, which is supposed to mean emphasis, appear any way we want. You should read in your text about the inline elements and how they are, and what the semantic meaning that is attached to them. So what did this strong just do that I made? Okay, see, it made it bold, but that wasn't the purpose, remember. The purpose was it was now labeled as important, okay? When we want to make things change font or color or size or whatever, just for presentation purposes, we'll do that later in CSS. So we're not really concerned about what things look like now, we're writing structured information. Okay, so let's continue along here then. You in this assignment are going to add some inline elements as directed with the text, but I will let you decide where to and to pick good choices based on the semantic meaning. So we're going to continue along here. How to handle numbers. In just a moment, I'll continue. Okay, this major exception is really another paragraph. And therefore it should be tabbed in properly over here. Good. And now what do we have? We have a list. Ages, percentages, dimensions, distances, street addresses, money, clock time. This is a list of the major exceptions to the 1 through 9 rule. By the way, this information in this little document is important. You might want to know, and you should try to use it as you continue on with other writing for me. Because this really are APStyle, important APStyle rules. So how do we make a list? Right now, it's just appearing as word after word after word in a paragraph. Well, there are 3 kinds of lists that you need to know, and you should have read about them already. There is an unordered list. That's like a regular bulleted list. There's an ordered list, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, like directions, like do things in this order, right? And then there is a definition list or description list. It's called different things in different places. And it's like a glossary list. It's like a word and a definition, a word and a definition. So let's go ahead and make an unordered list. And an unordered list, by the way, HTML doesn't care if I put extra blank spaces here. So if I want to keep myself organized that way, I certainly can. And HTML doesn't mind if I make it wider, bigger. And by the way, if you do that and things run off the screen, it's because your word wrap is not attached. Remember your word wrap? And if you're not seeing things light up with the colors, that means that your document doesn't know about the language. So make sure you've applied language HTML, right? I already did that. Okay, so what is this? This is an unordered list. Unordered list is a UL. And by the way, this whole thing should be at the same level as a paragraph, I think, for indenting. The UL is. But then we're going to have a subset to it. But on its own, just saying that this is an unordered list, a UL, doesn't really do anything. We have to tell it what the items are in this list, right? So I'm going to actually make these another subset. Because within the UL are the list items. So this idea of LIs, whoops, LIs, open LI, close LI, that's a list item.